Good day, YouTube. This is Robert's Rantings, and I'm Robert. How's everybody doing today? I'd like to touch on a subject that we call fake news. I heard from a very intelligent young man today that it is everywhere, and it's plain to see it's everywhere. I believe that most of the media outlets are basically shivs for one side or the other. I personally don't care whether it's fake news from the liberal side or fake news from the conservative side, but I can tell you one thing about it. Honest Abe would be rolling in his grave. Yes, he would. We get a lot of clickbait, clickbaity news. It's crazy these days. And I think that a lot of that has to do with all of our news comes from LA or New York, the East Coast or the West Coast. Seems like the people in the middle don't make a lot of news. I bet they would disagree about that. I bet they make plenty of news. But they make good news too. But all we hear about is crazy stuff like Jussie Smollett. There's some good fake news for you. That's coming back up around again. And from the things that I've seen, he was attacked. And now I'm sure he's got a team of high-priced lawyers to somehow or another twist the fact that he paid two Nigerian fellows who were also on the cast of whatever show he was on to beat him up and to say that it was a racially motivated crime. Fake news. Now I wonder what the real trial is going to be like. Is it going to be another sweep under the rug? How did that get swept under the rug so fast the first time? Seemed like the man out there in Chicago that was on the news about it, the lawman, he was pretty upset about the whole situation. Excuse me for a second, I'm going to take this off because I'm not quite as honest as Abe is. Now, how is a person, just a regular man or woman, supposed to form an honest opinion about anything anymore when all the news is skewed one way or another? I'm not going to bring up Trump a bunch, but it sure seems like anything good he does gets turned around on him, and we're just supposed to believe the bad parts. And I can't really do that because I know I'm only hearing half the story. You know, when I was a kid, there were people like Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, and what they did is, it was a funny thing, they gave you the facts, the actual facts of the story, and then you were left to make some sort of judgment or opinion for yourself. Now, that's just not the case anymore. Now it's, here's what you should think. Here's what you should think. We got all these stars saying, here's what you should think. I'm sure they're real well informed. Who the hell knows? I know they believe whatever they're saying, sure. I know half the time that probably the news outlets believe what they're saying. Of course, they don't do as much research as they used to either. It can be very quickly put into print or onto a news outlet, and it's supposed to be believable. So basically, when you hear a story, the onus is on you to do the research to find out what really happened, and that's bullshit, really. That is bullshit. Does the common man have a way to form an opinion anymore? Does he? Or should he just eat whatever lies he's hearing? I don't know. I can't really watch the nightly news anymore because I know I'm only going to hear one side of the story no matter which side it is, you know. I consider myself a conservative, and I am. I'm not going to try and, you know, pretend like I'm on everybody's side. You know, I have a side, and that's honest. But, you know, if you only hear one side of an argument, well, that's all you know, you know. And, you know, they say that there's always three sides to every argument. There's their side, and somewhere in between is the truth, you know. So just getting facts would be great. Oh, wait a minute. This just in. Windbag gets punched by a speed bag. Holy cow. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Now, you know, again, back to the Jussie Smollett thing, I'm sure that money and, you know, who you know, not what you know, is going to be a factor in this, as usual. You know, there's still people out there like Al Sharpton lying every day and not paying taxes, you know. It's always going to happen that way. You know, where does it end? What do we do to stop fake news? Because even if, say, a newspaper reports a shit story, okay, and they're forced, I mean forced, and that only means the fake story is about somebody with real cash, okay, so they're forced to print a retractment, okay. Well, the front page story that was fake news is right out there for everybody to see. Whereas the retraction is on the 7th page and it's in smaller print than everything else. Very interesting. So the retraction hardly ever gets read, you know, and they are not legally liable anymore to say anything because they've already said, hey, we, you know, we can't, we printed a retraction, so we're good, you know. So all that bullshit that's already in everybody's head, it's like when you're in court and the judge says, strike that from the record, have the jury, you know, have the jury forget about that information. Well, they've already heard it, you know. You can't unhear things just like you can't unsee things, you know. It's like if Rosie O'Donnell was to pose nude and you saw it, you wouldn't be able to unsee it. So, for whatever it's worth, I think that we all really need to figure out where to get our news from, and, you know, we all really need to take even that with a huge grain of salt, because everybody has an agenda these days, okay? And let me tell you something. If your cause or whatever it is, if it has to be surrounded by lies, then maybe you should rethink your cause, you know? I see in the news these anti-AFTI, whatever the heck they are, they run around in all black hoodies and covering their faces. You know who else does that? Criminals do that. Criminals and cowards do that, okay? And that's it. So if you're running around like that, calling yourself the good guy, you're feeding yourself a line of bullshit, all right? Get over it, all right? Become an informed citizen and stop sweeping bullshit under the rug, okay? This is not what America was founded on, okay? And we really, really got to get back to honesty and truth in news before we can inform each other on said opinions of anything, all right? Now, be nice to everybody. Try not to hurt anybody, and make sure and stay cool in the gang. Have a great evening. Oh, yeah, and like and subscribe. And thumbs up if you think, if you think that the Taliban is bad, And thumbs down if you think AOC has half a brain. Have a good day, YouTube.